The first and only time I ever encountered one of these beings was when I was 12 years old hunting on a large ranch on the Texas-Mexico border in Del Rio, Texas. It was early in the morning before sunrise, and my dad dropped me off at the deer stand before the feeders went off. As I was sitting in the stand, I got this weird gut feeling that something was watching me. At first, I thought it was just 12-year-old me being scared of being alone in the dark, but the feeling grew more and more intense. It was dark, so I decided to open the door and shine my light, see if anything was there. And as I was closing the door out of the corner of my eye, I saw something dart away at an incredible speed. I just figured it was a jackrabbit or coyote or something. I never got that feeling again the rest of the morning. That evening, I went to the stand about 4:30 so I could hunt before the sun went down. As the sun was setting, about 6 p.m., I got the eerie feeling again, but this time, it was more intense than before. I looked through all the windows and couldn't see anything standing around, so I just shrugged it off. A few minutes later, I had to take a leak and the sun was fading, so dark you could hardly see the deer at the feeder. I opened the door, and in front of me was a mangled-looking coyote with hardly any hair and missing hide around its stomach. It was standing on two back legs, and as soon as it saw me, it darted away at an incredible speed, and I never went hunting on that ranch again. My family and I have been living in the middle of Butt, Missouri for a couple of years now, and things have been crazy to say the least. This is a list of our experiences. It started out pretty passive. The sound of old-fashioned radios and music boxes. Despite looking everywhere, including our crawl space beneath the house, we have never found anything. Everything in the house has heard this sound on separate occasions, despite not everyone believing it was necessarily something paranormal. Tapping, windows, walls, on backs. We don't have rats. We've checked. No branches up on trees or on ground windows, i.e. our windows are feet off the ground because we live on a steep hill. Scratches. I didn't believe in this and acted like a dickhead and was trying to freak my sisters out. The lights flickered rapidly and I was laying on my back on my phone and I felt a burning sensation. I thought it might have been a tick, so I asked my sisters to check, only to find 3 scratches. This is when we got my mother involved, who got in contact with a childhood friend who happened to be a cardinal on Facebook. He told us to have a priest bless the house and to get me checked for mental illness, which I do have, but don't necessarily understand why I would need to get checked for mental illness when I have visible scratches. Things started to happen on the daily after we heard a woman shriek for full 7 seconds outside our window around midnight. We were paralyzed for about a second and bolted to get our dad and the gun. We have had escapee prisoners on the loose around our area before, and a lot of meth heads who wander around our street, so we didn't chalk it up to something spooky, but rather something we could shoot at. We checked the entire perimeter of our property and nothing. We didn't sleep. Static in the corner of my room. Almost every single night I heard static from the same corner. I took back my dresser and got so tired of it, I unplugged everything in my room because I thought it was something else explainable. The TV hum or something. But it still is just static. My father came in and he heard My sister heard it, and it caused her not to be able to sleep in my room because it kept her up and made her lightheaded. One night, the static got too much, and I went to sleep with my sister. I'm 17, but this was getting old, and I was thoroughly scared of our house at this point. We seriously were so scared of our own property, we bought a blow-up bed so I could sleep in my sister's room when this got too much. I had to go to the bathroom, but I didn't want to go alone because it's next to my room. So I took my sister and dared her to sit in my room for the duration of my pee. To my horror, I heard her footsteps bolt out, and I found her hyperventilating on her bed. She had seen a pale hand dart out from under my bed, which is like her worst fear. We locked the bedroom door to sleep soundly, but every time we looked over, it was unlocked. This happened 5 times before we gave up. The closet door also kept opening throughout the night. We live on a family property with our grandparents having lived here. My mother and her brother and our mother always passed down the wisdom that when the sun starts to go down, you go inside. I've always thought it was just because we have coyotes and the occasional wolf. Now I wonder. Our outside experiences include seeing black masses move through the forest and behind trees, children and mothers crying in the woods behind us, screams, just screams, gut-wrenching screeches. We've had foxes and wildcats. We're experienced in wood etiquette, and this is just different. The woods going silent and the cracking of one path being made through the woods, with us seeing nothing, eyes watching us way too far off the ground, and way too focused to leave us comfortable staring back. This is only the beginning. Please leave a comment. Is this a skinwalker? Is it just a ghost or something? Any advice is appreciated. We just want this to stop. This happened to me 8 years ago, but surely something I will always remember. My grandfather had made it clear that I should never talk about what we experienced, and I should just forget it ever happened. But I feel like I won't ever let go of this memory if I wouldn't be able to release it. So anyways, I was 11 at that time. It was summer, and usually we visit our vacation house, which I'd say is pretty secluded. We don't have any close neighbors, and the house is literally in the middle of the woods. I never disliked going there, as it's close to a river with a waterfall, which, by the way, looks up from the Garden of Eve. My parents let me stay in the house with my grandpa, as my mom and dad had a business trip. But I remember them promising they'll follow as soon as they get back from their trip. My grandpa picked me up around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The drive was around 3 hours. Evening arrived, and we're just halfway through. Because of a major car crash, we were stuck in the traffic for a long time. We almost finished 10 radio dramas while waiting through traffic. We were finally driving up the mountains, which means we were close to home, but the road is insanely dark and covered in trees. There are some parts of the road where it looked like we were driving through tunnels, as the trees' branches were covering the sky. Then a loud thud broke the silence between the two of us. My grandpa had hit a big rock that was sitting in the middle of the road, like someone intentionally put it there to cause an inconvenience. This caused the car to smoke, and it turns out that our clutch overheated. My grandpa decided we spend the night in the car, as he was very tired and he's not very good at driving in the dark. I was also really tired, so I was ready to fall asleep. My grandpa said that he'll get his pillow and flashlight out of the compartment of the car. I was listening to him move and arrange our stuff and then I fell asleep. I wasn't sure how long I had been sleeping, but I got woken up from a sound of scratching under the car, like someone has a rock and was writing something under the car. I was 100% sure that I'm not going to forget it and just sleep in. But as I wandered my eyes, I saw a small dash of light in this dark road. It was my grandpa facing a tree, pointing his flashlight in a total black of nothingness. I thought he also heard that scratching sound and he was looking for it. I was about to get out of the car and call him to get back in the car because I'm scared. But suddenly, I noticed that his neck is unusually long and has a patch of hair running through his whole neck. I knew something up was going on, so I started observing and looking around the car. I panicked, and there I see my grandpa, covered in blankets, sleeping at the back of the car. I quickly woke him up and told him what I saw. He quickly dismissed it, saying that maybe I was just dreaming or I was just tired. But I knew he was also scared from what I just told him, and he tried to stay calm so I wouldn't panic. Just a few minutes later, the scratches were back and it got louder, and there was also thudding under the car, like someone is smashing their hands under the car. I was panicking. My eyes were filled with tears, where my vision was all blurry and my head was hurting from all the anxiety. My grandpa heard it all. This time, he was awake and more alert. He said there might be squirrels or rabbits under the car, and he'll go check it, which I quickly opposed as I seen this stuff in horror movies and it never goes well. And I was also so scared to be left in that car for just a second. As soon as he opened the door, the flashlight, where whatever that thing is I saw in the woods, was lit. I was so scared. It was laying on the floor. The light was facing our car. Then, I heard the scariest sound I ever heard in my life. It was my mom's voice singing, but we both knew that whatever that thing is, it wasn't my mom. The voice sounded disgusting and distorted. The voice was stringy and it sounded like it was pretending and trying to imitate human language. The voice lasted for 1 minute, and the last part sounded so terrifying as it sounded like shrieking in pain, but almost like laughing at the same time. He closed the door, locked all locks, and sat in the driver's seat. He was shaking. We shared an eye contact. He was so pale and looked so terrified. We were both sitting there in pure fear and silence as the radio signal isn't that clear around that area. That night, we drove back home, and he always told me to forget everything that happened and pray every night.